Hi guys, it's Wednesday, April 10th. That means because it's April, it's time to VEDA, vlog every day April. And because it's Wednesday, I'm actually going to take a look at some of the books that are actually coming out today. Now mind you, I haven't actually gotten a chance to read these. I've only seen some previews because I haven't actually got to my shop yet. I still think that there's a couple books out this week that might be worth a look. Two for sure, one that I'm kind of iffy on, but I wanted to give my opinion on the series anyways. First up is Batman and Red Robin 19. Now if you haven't been following along, Batman recently lost his apprentice slash son, Damian Wayne. This book kind of deals with the fallout from that, specifically Batman grieving the loss of his son and trying to find a way to resurrect him. Tim Drake, his former apprentice turned Red Robin, is now kind of concerned about Bruce Wayne's mental well-being and how he's dealing with this loss. He seems incapable to deal with what's actually happening. He makes note of the fact both he and Superman have returned from the dead, so why can't Damian, especially given his ancestry as, you know, the grandson of Ra's al Ghul, who has a tendency to come back from the dead quite frequently thanks to his Lazarus pit. However, what's really interesting about this book, I mean, that's great, that's an entire story unto itself, but there's a side story with a character named Carrie Kelly, which, if you don't know your Batman history, she was the Robin in The Dark Knight Returns. And while she's never technically been a part of official canon, this is her introduction into the DC universe proper. A lot of people are speculating that she's going to become the next Robin. However, she does seem to have some familiarity with the Wayne family and seems to be in their employ as Damian's former tutor, I guess. She seems to have all the sass and personality of her Dark Knight Returns counterpart, but is now part of the actual DC universe, so that's kind of exciting. I expect this book is going to be very popular today. Next up is Avengers Arena, which is, I'm not exactly sure why they called this series Avengers, other than, you know, for the alliterative Avengers Arena, and then for, you know, the obvious ability to sell the book. It's not specifically Avengers. There are Avengers characters involved, but there's a lot of other characters as well. There's Runaways and there's, you know, former Young X-Men and characters I'm not even familiar with. Darkhawk seems to be in there somewhere. The classic X-Men villain, Arcade, who's kind of a joke in the Marvel Universe, has put together another one of his murder worlds, which basically puts together these elaborate game situations where superheroes are thrown into it and they have to, like, run through a series of traps. You've seen this shtick before with several different supervillains, and it's certainly not an original idea. This one's even less so, because basically he decides to capture a bunch of teenage superheroes, throw them into an arena, and make them fight to the death, a la Hunger Games or Battle Royale. The first cover is actually, it looks very similar to the Battle Royale. Even the logo looks very similar to the Battle Royale cover. They reference Hunger Games a couple times throughout the book. I thought this was going to be just a mini-series. It appears to be an ongoing. They're starting to tell side stories, and it's not just one arc. It seems to be several different storylines within this one big story. And it's not as good as I was hoping it was going to be. I tend to like a lot of the teen superheroes, especially X-23, who is one of my favorite characters and is in this series. And I'm just not a huge fan of it so far. However, I'm going to continue picking it up. Maybe it'll change my mind eventually. The next one I want to talk about, which is a little controversial, not the book itself necessarily, although, I mean, there's controversy over the book because of its mature content. I want to talk about Saga. Saga is a series by Brian K. Vaughan. It's a really cool series because he made a very specific mandate when he published this series that he didn't want to have any advertisements in the book. It's a full comic that's cover to cover, nothing but story. It's a very mature story. It's sort of an adult, a grown-up version of Star Wars. This has lots of depictions of sex and violence and very graphic depictions of sex and violence. But it's got incredible character development and a really good story so far. And I think it's shaping up to be a really good universe. And not just a good story, but he's really fleshing out the world that these characters inhabit. The reason why it's so topical right now is because Apple banned it from the Apple Store this week, which a lot of people kind of raised their eyebrows. Specifically, this was done because of a depiction of gay sex. Now, a lot of people thought that was an intentionally homophobic thing on Apple's part because they've allowed other issues of the series to come out with far more graphic depictions of sex. I don't think it's nearly as malicious as people feel it is. I think it's more of an oversight than it is people trying to intentionally ban gay content. My speculation is that they're probably banning this more to do with the sex, which is ridiculous because it's a very inconsistent ruling, because it's very specifically a very small, like, I've seen the pictures of it, it's tiny little screen caps of, like, it's literally on a television screen, a little tiny image of two men having sex, and because it's gay, a lot of people are kind of jumping on this and saying, oh, Apple's homophobic. They could be. I don't know exactly what's going on here, but it doesn't seem very likely to me. Far more likely they just weren't paying attention and they saw sex and said, no, we can't publish this. Because they do have a very strict sort of ruling about sex in their apps and whatnot. Unfortunately, they kind of apply it very inconsistently, and like I said, previous issues of this series, and there have been other series, do depict sex and other mature acts. There's all kinds of violence that they kind of constantly show, and I don't understand why this is kind of the thing that they picked on, and it's unfortunate that they did, because this is not going to go their way. This is going to be a PR nightmare, and I don't see them saving themselves in this matter. So there you go. There's 3 books that you can go out and find today. There's a whole bunch of great books and whatnot. There's more Age of Ultron coming out, but since I reviewed that last week, I'm going to leave that alone. I might come back to it when the entire series is done and give an overview, because unfortunately it's not moving very quickly, and I don't know if I quite like it yet. However, Bendis books tend to pick up later in the series, and as more and more is revealed, you come to appreciate the early stories a little bit more. So my mind may be changed on that when I have the full perspective of the entire series, but for now I'm not a huge fan. So there you go, a bunch of big books to pick up today. It is New Comic Book Day, so I hope you guys kind of enjoy watching these, and I will see you tomorrow. Good night, guys.